What does it all mean?
This is where the archaeology has been found.
Oh, hi, how are you? Look at that.
I need a planter. A shrine to a belly button. This is a rock skull? Look at that.
No one gets into this but no one. Whoa, don't take me too far. Now that's naked archaeology.
Space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the Naked Archaeologist and his 5-year mission to seek out theories that have been rejected by normal academia. Those very theories that may explain...
Just may explain stuff.
2, 1, fire.
Houston, we have contact.
In the timeless distances of outer space?
One of the most unusual passages in the Bible comes from the first verses of chapter 1 in the book of Ezekiel. It tells of how Ezekiel had a psychedelic vision of God flying through the night sky on a chariot that's driven by 4 winged creatures. And on the head of each of those creatures, he sees 4 faces, that of a man, a lion, an ox, and an eagle. But where did this heavenly vision come from? Was Ezekiel on drugs? Or was he just plain crazy? Or could it be that his imagery holds a hidden code that speaks of some ancient wisdom about the skies? And if so, what archaeology is out there that can tell us what Ezekiel's vision is all about? Ezekiel transcribed his vision back in 586 BCE when he, along with thousands of other Jews, were exiled to Babylon by the Babylonian warlord Nebuchadnezzar. And for the past 2,500 years, that vision has perplexed both scholars and theologians alike. But astrologers have always claimed to understand its message as a representation of the zodiac. In fact, Yaron Livne is an Israeli astrologer who believes that the Bible is full of hidden astrological codes.
I always think of astrology, this is my own prejudice, something pagan, non-biblical. How do these two traditions, the astrological tradition and the biblical tradition, how do they fit or not fit?
If we'll go backwards a little bit, the people of Israel came out of Egypt, from the pyramids, from the Sphinx, which are a big, very big, huge structure of astrology. The Egyptians understood astrology very deep. I think that Moses took off astrology knowledge from the pyramids. Yes, this is the beginning of astrology. You know, astrology is everywhere. You just have to know to read and to look. In Judaism, you see, we have the 12 tribes, like the 12 apostles of Jesus.
One second, did you just say the 12 tribes are astrological?
It's symbol. It's astrological symbols. It is hidden inside.
Let me see if I understand. What you're saying is that the Bible, the book of Exodus, for example, has astrology encoded in it.
Coded in it and more deep than you think, because when you look at Ezekiel,
The chariot,
when he describes the face of the eagle, the face of the Scorpio to the other one, the face of the Taurus, and the face of a lion. He's talking astrology. He's talking about the fixed signs, Leo, Scorpio, Taurus, and Aquarius. This is astrology. If you're an astrologer, you understand exactly on what he's looking and what he's talking about.
According to Livne, those 4 faces in Ezekiel's vision correspond to the 4 fixed symbols of the zodiac. But I have to admit, I'm not entirely convinced. Besides, I always thought that astrology and the Bible were like a bacon double cheeseburger with a tall glass of milk. They just weren't a kosher combination. People who believe in God didn't have anything to do with the zodiac. Or did they? As it turns out, there's an amazing piece of archaeology that might just prove that astrology and the Bible did mix.
In 1929, Israeli farmers, communal farmers, members of a kibbutz, were digging at the base of the biblical Mount Gilboa, and they found an ancient synagogue, the 5th century. And that was pretty rare, but even rarer is a mosaic that they found in there, and even rarer, they found astrological symbols in the mosaic. Now, that's a big no-no as far as Judaism and synagogues are concerned, because you're not supposed to have graven images, people, animals inside a synagogue.
Here is the entrance to the synagogue. That's where the Holy of Holies was. That's where it's facing Jerusalem. That's where the Torah would have been. And you have pillars on both sides, and you have benches on both sides. That's where the people stood. Now look at this. It's an amazing thing. Why? Because at its center, you have astrological signs.
Right on the mosaic. Now, it's not so unusual in the Byzantine period, the Greek influence period, but for a synagogue, it's very unusual.
But I'm still confused. The Bet Alpha synagogue wasn't built until 800 years after Ezekiel had his vision. The mosaic there is clearly influenced by Hellenism, a worldview that dominated the first centuries of the Common Era when the Greeks became world leaders in both astronomy and astrology. But what could the ancients have known about the stars back in Ezekiel's time? Maybe more than you think. Recently, archaeologists have uncovered a 2,900-year-old ivory carving that strangely matches Ezekiel's vision. Some believe it might contain a secretly coded star chart.
Twinkle, twinkle, little star. I'm looking for archaeology in my car.
I'm looking for clues that might explain Ezekiel's psychedelic vision of four-winged, four-headed creatures flying with the chariot of God. So far, I've had an astrologer tell me that those creatures represent the four fixed signs of the zodiac. And my trip to the Bet Alpha synagogue revealed a mosaic that shows that astrology and Judaism definitely mixed it up back in the first centuries of the Common Era.
It's important to remember that in ancient times, astronomy and astrology were essentially the same thing. And you didn't study the movement of the stars to explain the universe only. You studied the movement of the stars to explain what was going to happen right here on Earth.
At the Bible Lands Museum in Jerusalem, there's an ancient ivory carving that might have served astrology and astronomy. Not only does it seem to match Ezekiel's vision of winged creatures, but it may contain a hidden star map.
Okay, these are very rare, expensive, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we were to break this, that would be bad, right?
Mm-hmm.
How bad?
Very bad.
You're a restorer. You would be able to restore it, right?
Yeah, that's not a problem.
So it just keeps you busy.
I'm very busy.
So these are 2,900 years old, correct?
Yeah.
And these are cherubs.
Yeah.
And they came from a throne.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
You restored it?
I restored it, yeah.
What did you
Both.
restore?
They were in a very bad shape. They were dried out. So I had to...
Here, I'll hold this with... I'm very strong. You show us.
I had to put them in solubles to refresh them. And what was missing, I
Filled in
with...
with a telephone. It's okay, I'll just stand here while you talk on the telephone.
כן, אין לי זמן כרגע, רק אני באמצע
Okay, my arms are going, Regula. My arms are
עוד
going.
מעט, בסדר?
I can't do this much longer.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, thank you. Now, you know, there's this man by the name of Peter Aleph who has a theory. And his theory is that embedded in these ivories, in these cherubs, is really a sky chart of how the northern sky would have looked like 2,900 years ago from Damascus.
Yeah.
By identifying all the circular shapes in the carving and then finding their centers, an engineer by the name of Peter Aleph discovered that the resulting configuration very closely matches the position of the stars in the ancient Damascus sky.
If I borrowed this for just a few days, would that? It's beautiful, actually. It's extremely beautiful. I'm just going to take a close look at it. I have to tell you, it's moving to be next to an object that's 2,900 years old, to be so close and see every detail of it. See, there's a circle. There's a circle. There's a circle. Anyway, you've been very kind.
The carving tells me that the ancients knew a lot more about the stars than I originally imagined. Which makes sense, because by tracking the moon and the stars, they were able to keep track of time. Back then, people didn't have watches or Blackberries to organize their schedules, so they looked to the skies to monitor the passing of the months and seasons. And here, in northern Israel, there's a 5,000-year-old ruin, a kind of Middle Eastern Stonehenge that was designed to do just that. My quest to decode the prophet Ezekiel's vision introduced me to the idea that there is a hidden astrological message in what Ezekiel saw. The archaeology was suggesting that the ancients knew more about the movement of the stars than I had previously thought. After all, the Egyptians worshipped the sun as if it was a god, and the Great Pyramids still stand as a testimony to those beliefs. But more than 1,500 years before the Egyptians slept their first block of stone, people all over the world started building their own monuments to the sun and the stars. Stonehenge is one of the most famous examples. But the Middle East has its own version of Stonehenge. I'm going there to meet up with Yoni Mizrahi, the man who excavated this puzzling site back in the early 1980s. Maybe he can tell me about the people who built this site and what they would have known about charting the stars.
You gonna show us?
Yeah, let's go.
We're talking about a site that's 3,500 years old? No, more, 4,000.
Actually,
more,
5,000 years old. 3,000 BC, early Bronze Age.
Wow.
This is the central mound. No, this was the highest point.
So this is great. I actually, standing here, the concentric circles are so clear.
Yes, they are. The problem is that you don't get a sense of the symmetry and the geometry from a ground level. You must go up.
Seen from above, the site is comprised of 3 concentric rings made out of more than 50,000 tons of volcanic fieldstone.
One of the mysteries is why would anyone bother to do such a huge effort to bring thousands of tons of stones and to build such a perfect geometry and symmetry to a site. The question of function became extremely important very early on since the site was discovered, and there were tons of hypotheses.
Aliens from outer space?
Oh yeah, that too, obviously.
Did you find any remnants of a flying saucer?
No, no.
So there goes that theory.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's deal with the astronomy. How did you figure it out and what did you figure out?
When the archaeologists first found this site, they saw all these radial walls, but much more importantly, they saw 2 huge rocks, which are exactly due east. I don't know if you can see them.
I think I see them, those 2 kind of in a V.
Yeah, exactly. A notch in there. This is the exact east.
Is that perfectly at east?
Yeah.
The archaeologists knew that the east-facing notched rock was significant. They had a hunch that it would line up with the equinox. It didn't. But the sun would have had a different path 5,000 years ago.
So what we had to do is to find the geometrical center of the site and take all the measurements from there, but to calculate where the sun and where the stars were around 3000 BC.
And when you did that, was there a wow moment?
Yeah, there was a wow moment. If you stand at the geometrical center of the site 3,000 years ago, days of the spring equinox, the sun would rise exactly between those 2 stones.
So if you're a priest standing in the center looking out, you can do 2 things. One is that you can track, edicts can go out and say plow, you know, gather, whatever.
Sure.
The second thing is that you can set the calendar ritually. You can have celebrations, days of atonement.
Exactly, as they did throughout the Near East. This is the time when all the animals give birth.
Fertility.
Sure.
You have a little sex orgy right in the center of the...
Sure.
Helps fertility.
Oh, sexology always helps fertility.
So is this a giant sundial?
Yeah, it's a giant marking of celestial events, basically. And if you follow this calendar, you get a sense of, you know what's actually going to be, what's actually going to happen. This is extremely important.
Ruzhem El-Hiri is an amazing site, not only because of the massive effort it took to organize all those stones into concentric circles, but because it tells me that the ancients of the Near East really were well acquainted with the movement of the stars. Maybe they even understood Ezekiel's vision as an astrological metaphor. But if the ancients were so good at using the heavenly bodies to track time, then what did they think of the biblical concept of creation? How could they possibly believe that the entire universe and everything in our planet was created in just 6 days like it says in the Bible? Wouldn't Genesis sound like some elaborate children's story? Today, scientists believe that the universe was formed not in 6 days, but over the course of billions of years. But it turns out that modern science and the Bible may both be right. And I found an astrophysicist who believes he can explain why. My quest to uncover the meaning of Ezekiel's vision has shown me that the Bible is full of astrological and astronomical information encoded within its text. That idea is leading me to something even bigger, the biblical explanation of how the universe was created. I can't help but wonder if there's a hidden code in that text as well. In the Bible, God says, "Let there be light," and wham, there is light. God then creates the entire universe, including our own planet, in only 6 days. Throughout history, science has insisted that the universe is eternal and that the Bible's explanation is nothing more than myth. But recently, a theory has emerged that the universe did have a beginning. It started off with a Big Bang. But according to that theory, it took billions of years to create the universe, not 6 days.
So I'm on my way, if this light ever turns, to Jerry Schroeder.
He's an astrophysicist who believes that modern science and the book of Genesis don't contradict each other.
Well, let's talk about the Big Bang. Most people think there's a basic conflict between the Bible's idea of the origin of the universe and modern science.
I should put it this way, in simple words, the discovery of the Big Bang is the best news for God since Moses came down from Sinai. Nothing can match it. There was a creation to the world. The Big Bang says there's a creation.
Most people say, yeah, but that beginning is it's not a 6-day creation. It's billions of years. We're not talking days. We're talking eons.
Well, there's two problems here. First, the creation of the universe. We solved that problem. So is it billions of years or is it numbers of days? From the creation of the universe to the creation of the soul of Adam on day 6, the universe has to advance from a burst of energy to the existence that we know, the modern man. All I need to know is how time dilation would work from this moment when matter forms till today or Adam or any time that you want in the modern world. And we know that number. We know the ratio of this dilation of time. It's not gravity and it's not velocity. It's the stretching of space. The original space stretched almost like rubber. And that affects the perception of time when seen at a distance.
Professor Schroeder came up with an extremely complex theory that can explain the creation of the universe in 6 days. But it is so complicated that we had to get our crack team of writers and editors to cut it down to its bare essentials. It goes like this. Physicists around the world agree that the Big Bang created our universe. And as it expanded, it stretched by a factor of 1 trillion. As space stretches, it also distorts time, and that's why from Earth the universe appears to be approximately 15 billion years old. But if you were to observe the universe from its point of origin, it would appear much, much younger. Jerry Schroeder has come up with a formula that he believes reflects the age of the universe from the perspective of the origin of the Big Bang. He took the 15 billion years that science estimates to be the age of the universe and divided it by the stretching factor. He came up with the number 0.015.
Converted into days just happens to equal 6 days. The fact is the universe is 6 days old from this perception and billions of years from this perception, provided you take the view from the beginning looking forward. Those 6 24-hour days do indeed contain all the ages, the billions of years.
So you're saying there's God's clock?
The Bible's clock.
Okay, let me...
The Bible's clock.
All right, so you're saying there's the Bible's clock?
For the 6 days of Genesis.
And there's kind of the human clock.
Yes.
And the first days until man is created, is a kind of...
perception of time from the beginning looking forward.
Do you think the ancients somehow intuitively understood that when they looked up at the heavens?
I think we all understand it. It sounds strange, but we have a cosmic memory. And the ancients, being closer to nature, could in fact look at the stars and feel it. They saw that they were part of this big system. There wasn't this tremendous separation that we have today.
Ezekiel's prophecy may have been drawing on knowledge that we are only now discovering, namely that time is pliable, and that understanding it is a matter of perspective. There's creation from the biblical perspective and creation from our own somewhat shrunken point of view. As for Ezekiel's strange vision, we may never know exactly what it really means. But from what I've learned, it obviously has deep roots in astrology and astronomy. It's introduced me to a whole new layer of meaning that is embedded in the biblical text, a layer of meaning that tells me that there may be knowledge in the Bible that is ahead, not behind, science's current understanding of the cosmos.
Sometimes great minds feel misunderstood. I know that I do.
There's a guy giving us a ticket for filming.
Come on, we're getting a ticket for filming. Not today.
I'm the Naked Archaeologist.
Just a minute.
He's a tall, tall man from a tall, tall land. He makes no apologies for his archaeology. He's a tall, tall man from a tall, tall land. No apologies for his archaeology.